shall we? But first, allow me to start with the culture and government in Vietnam. In Vietnam, people place huge emphasis on generosity, hard work, and gentleness. Anyone who failed to meet that etiquette by being lazy and disloyal will be despised immediately. According to the 2020 Culturegrams Online World Edition entry in Vietnam, in the section eating, it is cultural to eat a rice bowl in hand instead of placing them in the table. If anyone who put the rice bowl in the table, it is considered very rude and lazy. The Communist Party is the only legal political party that is permitted to make whatever decisions for Vietnam country in their best interests. Because of their strong influence, people naturally want to join them to build successfulness in wealth, society, and businesses. According to the 2020 Culturegrams Online World Editions entry in Vietnam, in the section government, it is noted that the government holds too much power to the point when people cannot oppose them. Anyone who dare to oppose them will get arrested, or in worst case scenario, they get executed. Now that I have spoken to you about the culture and government in Vietnam, now allow me to move on to the verbal and non-communication in Vietnam. According to the 2020 Culturegrams Online World Edition entry in Vietnam, in the section's greeting, the writer wrote that people mostly like to use Xin chào, Đang làm gì đây, welcome, and so on to greet other people out of pure politeness. When people speak to one another, they must use the formal title to address them by using chị, anh, bác, cô. For more clarification, go and back is only used for people who are elder than you. Chị, anh is only used for people who are like 15 older than you. Basically like a family title, even though technically you're not blood related. According to the 2020 Culturegrams Online World Edition entry in Vietnam, in the section gestures, the reporter reported that if a person wants to call someone, he must use a palm with 4 fingers down to call them, instead of summoning people with a pointing finger, because that is considered very rude and disrespectful. If a person touches another person's head, it is also considered disrespectful, since it is considered the most spiritual point in the body, and they could even disrespect their religion, whether it's intentionally or not. I have already spoken to you about the culture and government in Vietnam, and the verbal and non-verbal communication in Vietnam. Communication pattern in Vietnam. Finally, allow me to speak to you about 2 current and interesting events in Vietnam. According to the title, Vietnam aims to make English second language for all students by 2035, by VNA in the March 6, 2025, in the edition of VNA. The Deputy Minister of Education and Training, Pham Ngoc Hung, made a speech about making all kind of resources available to all students to make them learn English as a mandatory and help them build more language skill, especially English. Hopefully, the decision will be worked by close to 2035. The experiences from paying overpriced U.S. consultancy services. Vietnamese parents are willing to pay U.S. consultancy services no matter how much it costs to send their kids to college in order for them to have a better life in USA and have a better future ahead, unlike them. Natural climate disasters. There will be cold spells along with frost coming soon in northern mountainous area, especially in Hanoi. It will cause large inconvenience for farming industry and agriculture, and it is also reported that people feel fatigued by the cold weather. The economic disasters. According to the article, Yagi, removed from the when a lot of people died to exactly 313 people and 26 people missing. And they also, not only that, but they also caused economic loss for Vietnam country by making them lose 3.29 billion. That's a lot, isn't it? With that said, in closing, first, I have spoken to you to the culture and government in Vietnam. Next, I already have spoken to you about the verbal and non-communication pattern in Vietnam. And lastly, the current and interesting events in Vietnam. Despite all of the cons I explained throughout this presentation, I urge you to give Vietnam a visit, and I promise you won't regret it. To add cherry on top, Vietnam provides everything you need from cheap meals to cheap transportation. Sounds like a good deal, right? Well, what are you waiting for? Let's go!